Welcome everyone. My name is Kosala Hemachandra. I'm the CEO and founder of MyEtherWallet. Today I'll be talking about impact of Ethereum advancements in developing world. I believe this is a great topic for this conference. Let's take a look at what the presentation will cover. So basically, initially I'll be talking about or give you a brief introduction on what is blockchain, and then we'll talk about Ethereum advancements and and then we'll get into current impact of Ethereum in developing world. Then finally, we'll talk about potential impact of Ethereum in developing world. So what is blockchain? Blockchain is a decentralized ledger. Think of it as an Excel spreadsheet. But instead of a central authority controlling that spreadsheet's content, the whole world as a community controls the data or what goes into it or what comes out of it. And then the good thing about this spreadsheet, it's all auditable all the way to the beginning. So anyone who wants to track like what happened to all the data or like how did it change over the period of over a period of a specific time, they can always go back and check and get to know how it worked. And then this decentralized technology is used in um, value transfer network called Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is the very beginning, or like the most widely used, very first blockchain technology. So Bitcoin, think of Bitcoin as a simple value transfer network. So basically, I'm giving you 10 Bitcoin, you give me 5 Bitcoin. Now you have 5 Bitcoin, and I have 5 Bitcoin. So it is simple as that. And then we'll talk about Ethereum, which is, think of it as Bitcoin on steroids plus more. So it can do so much more than simple value transfer. Basically, you can code smart contracts, meaning you can control or like you can code specific logic that goes into specific actions or specific outcomes. So you can code logic that will give you the desired outcome. And once you deploy that in smart contract or deploy that logic into the blockchain, it's completely immutable, unless obviously you create the logic so that it is updatable. But that's the best side of it, which enables Ethereum to create a lot more than a simple token like in Bitcoin or simple value transfer network like in Bitcoin, but it can create much, much, much more than what Bitcoin can do. And then we'll get into that on the next slide. So what are some of these big things that Ethereum can do? So one major advancement that came to blockchain because of Ethereum is smart contracts. So basically, just like how I mentioned before, smart contracts has the ability to code logic into your transactions or create logic that will give you a desired outcome. And if that logic fails, the whole transaction won't go through. So for example, let's take a look at a simple escrow contract where you as a person have to, like, without an escrow contract or without a third party, right now you don't want to trust someone that you don't know. So for example, let's just say you're trying to buy a house, right? So obviously you have to go through an escrow party until you go and check and make sure that whole house is in good shape. So you can simply code that into Ethereum. So for example, basically how it works, you will give, as like in this example, Alice will give 1 ETH to the escrow contract and Bob will give 1 ETH to the escrow contract. And then now the escrow contract has 2 ETH. And based on the outcome between Bob and Alice, and if they both agree, the escrow contract can pay out the 2 ETH to one of them. And if they don't agree for some reason, escrow contract can give those 2 ETH back to Bob and Alice. And this can be completely decentralized. So you don't have to believe or you don't have to trust anyone throughout this whole process. And another good example will be a voting contract. So for example, now we have to trust, like for example, if it's a government um, voting system, then we have to trust that like no one will manipulate the vote count, or no one will create new votes, things like that. But with a smart contract based voting contract, you don't have to worry about that. Like simply you create set of voters, and then each voter will only get one vote, and then multiple votes based on the logic again. And you can you don't have to trust any third party, which is great. And let's look at a couple more. Another big advancement happened because of Ethereum is DeFi. I'm pretty sure most of you heard of DeFi or like decentralized finance. And it's not just one thing, it consists of multiple different layers or multiple different things. So, for example, like one big decentralized finance will be a decentralized wallet. Like, for example, my wallet is one of them. And there are many other wallets or wallet services out there. Basically, what a decentralized wallet means is that it gives user, the owner, full control of their funds. So not one or like a third party, like for example, like when we put our funds in a bank, the bank has full control of our funds. So they can maybe one day disappear and then suddenly we don't have our funds anymore. So that won't happen with decentralized wallets, meaning the user, the owner, gets total control of their funds. And another good example will be decentralized token. So a lot of you might have heard of like ERC20 tokens, like it got so much popularity in 2017 and still extremely popular. There are so many tokens in Ethereum based on ERC20 standard. And all these tokens are based on a specific set of rules. So no one has to trust the company or the organization that actually created the tokens, as long as they own that token and they know the set of rules. So anyone can create a ERC20 token, a decentralized token with specific set of rules that governs the token. Another good example will be decentralized exchanges, or we call it DEXs, and where you can convert from one of these ERC20 token to another ERC20 token, or like you can convert ETH to another ERC20 token and much more, and then you can like swap between these tokens and then maybe make a profit at the end, and then there are multiple like organizations working on decentralized exchanges, and which is a great tool for decentralized finance. And then decentralized lending is another like a very good example when it comes to DeFi. So decentralized lending means, like, let's say you have ETH or you have a very valuable ERC20 token, you can lend it and earn interest, earn passive interest income based on what you lend. So this is another great example of like bringing in centralized solutions into a decentralized world. Like for example, you earn interest when you deposit money into your bank account, and exactly similarly, you can do the exact same thing in decentralized finance or DeFi, and you can lend what you have, your ETH, and give it away, or like give it and lend it to other people and earn passive income or like earn interest based on that. Decentralized insurance is also like booming and upcoming technology based on DeFi or like DeFi ecosystem, where you can basically get insurance for your assets. Let's go to the next one. So let's talk about current impact of Ethereum in developing world. So before this basically went over like some of the advancements, and let's say how those advancements are applicable in the current world, or like what is being used currently. So a good example will be World Bank and Asian Development Bank. They issued a $110 million bond using Ethereum, which means like it meant to give access to develop, like create more development in Asian countries, and it is completely fully trackable using the blockchain. So which gives them a great advantage. Like one of the great advantages of blockchain is the auditability, and then you can track, or like it is transparent. And another place where it's used currently is the Estonia's e-citizenship program. So basically what they do, their electronic ID card system is based on Ethereum, and it brings them a good feature of blockchain, which is tamper resistance and data integrity. So basically, this way they can track every use and misuse of data, and it's detectable. So whenever they detect one of these attacks or one of like misuses of the data, the government can take immediate action and justify it or like fix it right away. And then and Chile also uses Ethereum to track price, cost, compliance, and pollution data related to their energy consumption or their energy production. So this actually mitigates one of the biggest concerns of data manipulation and data hacks. So it is another great example since, like as I mentioned before, Ethereum or blockchain is immutable. So like once you put the data, you can always track and go back all the way and see where it modifies. And without following the specific set of rules, no one can modify the data either. So like it is a great way to mitigate hacks and manipulation of data that can be done in a centralized environment. And another great example will be like how Ethereum assets are currently used in developing world with a risk of hyperinflation in their local currency. So Ethereum created, like in, for example, in DeFi environment, like Ethereum created certain tokens that are pegged to stable currencies. For example, like DAI, which is pegged to USD value. So if your local currency in your country is in the risk of hyperinflation, it is good if you can convert it, or like it is better, or you can reduce the risk of hyperinflation if you invest in one of these like stable tokens or stable currencies. And it is a great example for these for the use of Ethereum and like DeFi systems based on Ethereum that reduces the risk of your investments or like your local currency getting hyperinflated. Yeah, let's look at the next one. So I also want to go over a couple of or like three different potential impact of Ethereum or like what Ethereum can do more to the developing world. So let's look at some of the issues in a developing world right now. So if you look at the currency or the local currency of a country, most of us know that like there's this black money issue where people don't report the income or don't report the tax or like the income they get, and it's basically illegal income. And then also there's this big issue of counterfeiters, right? Like there will be a lot of people are counterfeiting the local currency, and it just creates more and more issues in the whole system. And another one will be volatility, and then hyperinflation, just like I talked about before. And these issues can be the solution for some of these issues, or all of these issues, are actually like creating a local. The government can think of creating a local token or like currency-based one-to-one peg token for their local currency, which has a determined amount of issuance, right? So you know exactly how many tokens you issued, so therefore no one can counterfeit or like black money. All it since it's like completely trackable where it ends up. It's you cannot have black money anymore, and then volatility is like can be reduced using that as this as well. So because of like if you can create a token based on your local currency, it can increase transparency. And then, just like I mentioned before, it has determined amount in circulation and no counterfeit currency. So these are like great outcomes for some of these issues or all of these issues, which can be solved using blockchain or Ethereum via a token issuance contract. And the next one will be like if you look at the services offered in a developing world or a developing country, the main issue is like you cannot, the institutions are unreliable. So you cannot expect the institution to work in a certain way or like give you your documents, for example, in a certain time, you always have to depend on them and depend on like some of these corrupted institutions to do their job and um, and help you out and at the end. So it is very unstable and very unreliable. So you can create a decentralized autonomous organization based on using multiple layers of Ethereum smart contracts. For example, it can solve like basic basic needs, right? Like a deed transfer for your house doesn't need to be an actual entity or local organization that you have to walk in. You can simply do the deed transfer using the blockchain and transfer your house to another person. And these things can be very like autonomous or like can be done via a smart contract with specific set of rules, so it's not corruptible, it's very reliable, and any like you will always know what will be the outcome and when the outcome will happen. So because of this, like it can create automated legal procedures, and business transactions can be automated, and payments without intermediaries. I think this can be extremely helpful for a developing country because we all know most of the time third parties are the ones that makes money at the end. Like both part, everyone who's involved loses money, and then the third party actually is very profitable. But so we can take that risk out, we can reduce that risk and create payments without intermediaries. And the last one that I want to talk about, last potential impact of Ethereum is like record keeping. For example, like some of the issues in developing countries are document tampering, right? Like let's say you own the house today, and then when you check tomorrow, you no longer owns the house, and then you don't know what happened, and like suddenly a third party or like someone who tampered your document sold the house to another person, and now you're in this legal battle that you did not even expect to be in the first place, or you're not even supposed to be in the first place. And another issue will be centralized storages. So you are always in trouble of like having all the documents, since it's all paper based for most of the world, in like a centralized storage, and sometimes this storage unit might get destroyed for some like a natural disaster or something, and then you lose all of the data or like all the paperwork that's stored in that location. And also another issue is sensitiveness of this data. And not many people think about it, but unfortunately, like most of the sensitive data in developing world or developing countries are stored in a very insecure manner, like especially like health data is, I'm pretty sure like so many people have access to health data of different individuals that if you ask those individuals, they are not willing to share that data with anyone but the doctor. So a smart contract or like Ethereum can bring a great solution for these problems, and you can create smart contracts for individual like all of these issues, and it can solve in a nice, and it'll have a good outcome. Like for example, all the records are immutable, so no one can tamper with your data unless you want to. Not tampering, like unless you want to change the data, or like for example, um, give the deed to someone else, or like meaning like you sold the house, so you're transferring the data, but no one, a third party, cannot just jump in and tamper with your data. So all the records are immutable, and all the storage are secure and decentralized. So it's not like decentralization also brings this new concept of not storing your data all in one point. Like for example, centralized solutions, it's an issue because like most of the servers are not backed up properly, and all your data is in like one single point, and then it introduces a single point of failure, meaning like if that server gets destroyed for whatever reason, your data is still lost. So decentralized solutions brings this additional protection where your data is stored across thousands and thousands of nodes all over the world. So it's like completely safe. And the third outcome will be user gains access to their data. So user can decide who they want to share it with. So not everyone has access to the data. Like for example, janitor at one of these local locations cannot go through the data of a certain patient. So user can give access to the people who they want to give access to. So which is a great outcome. So yeah, we talked about all these like great outcomes, current impact, potential impact, all this, but what are the barriers and what could be the solutions? So based on my opinion, there are three main barriers, and accessibility is definitely one of them. And meaning like not many people have access to desktop computers. So if you create your application just to support desktop computers or desktop like a computer-based system, then most of the developing world can have access to that. And but on the other hand, 95% of the developing world has access to a smartphone, which is awesome. So it's time to think about mobile solutions and create solutions for mobile devices. And also, not just that, don't create solutions that requires a lot of bandwidth. Um, Meaning, like most of these, the developing countries, developing world doesn't have uh, great or high-speed internet connection. So you have to think about the internet connection they have, and even the internet connection they have is very expensive. So if you can create a solution that is bandwidth, um, that thinks about the bandwidth or like the amount of data usage, it's great. So it'll definitely help the usability of these applications or accessibility of these applications. The next one will be usability. Um, Most of us are developers, including myself. So we tend to create solutions from a developer's perspective. So we have to get out of that whole box and then think of solutions from a user-focused way. So you think from their perspective, see exactly what they want, and then how to make it simpler. And if you can do a 10-step process in 3 steps, that's the best solution you can offer. And then you also have to think about localization. So if your solution is just in English, you're not going to reach the developing world, because like developing world consists of 84% people, 84% of the world. So, and then they speak different languages. So it is a very, you have to target them specifically by their language to get and make it easy for them to interact or use your application. And the third one will be energy wastage. So all we know, everyone talks about when they talk about like proof of work or Bitcoin mining, Ethereum mining, the biggest problem is energy wastage. Like you have to have use so much energy, so much electricity to mine these, and it's not something that's feasible for like the developing world, because um, the energy is very expensive, first of all. And the second one is that not everyone has access to like a consistent electric line. So it might get cut off at certain times. They might not have it at all. They might have to go to some other place to charge their phone and then come back to the house they live in where they don't have electricity. So they have to go through these different issues. And some of the solutions will be energy-focused mining solutions, which are proof of stake is one of them, where you stake instead of proof of work mining. And the second one is we can also reimagine mining. For example, we can think of different mining solutions. Some of them can be the distance-driven, proof of distance, for example. And based on how much you drive, that can be a mining solution. And or like calories burned. We all, like to work out. And we all like to walk, run around. We have to work, and based on that, like if we can create a provable system based on the amount of calories burned by you, that can be a mining solution, which will be great. And you have to think of these different ways or different mining solutions that might be applicable to the developing countries or developing world if you're creating a completely new blockchain solution. And the next one, this is Mu's mission, or like my Tuala's mission: make freedom user friendly. Our focus is to support the whole world, and best case scenario, we can target every single person in the world, and um, that includes the developing world. Like I mentioned before, 84% of the world are the developing countries. So if you just create a solution only applicable for developed world, that's only going to capture a very, very tiny little amount of number of people, and that's not the solution you want to create. And that's why our mission is to introduce user-friendly, decentralized solutions to the world. Think of it as um, how to create solutions that can solve the issues of developing countries, and maybe even help them fast track and be part of the developed world, and help everyone make use of blockchain or make use of Ethereum. And that's about it. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you'll have a great day and have a great rest of the conference. Thank you.